My name is Paul Bunis, and I am the owner of Boston Stone Restoration. My wife Melissa and I have owned the business for about 10 years now, and we pride ourselves in servicing every aspect of the stone business, and that means restoration of all types, from marble to granite to every stone in between. Our latest project was executed at Belcourt Castle, which is one of the historic mansions in Newport, Rhode Island, right on Bellevue Avenue. And Belcourt was built by the founder of the Belmont Stakes. So it's no coincidence that the room that we were restoring, which is currently referred to as the ballroom, almost 4,000 square feet of marble and beautiful wood, was once the stable where the horses were kept and carriages would pull in and pull out back in the late 1800s and deliver people and take people, and this fabulous room was once a stable. This was one of, I believe, 2 stone floors interior to the mansion. So there's the original entryway, which is no longer the entryway, which was marble, and the stable/ballroom floor, which was a red mosaic limestone floor. History says that this floor was installed by hand, so remember 4,000 square feet, installing mosaic pieces, which are typically 1 inch by 1 inch, laid in mud or mortar on the floor with the direction of an artist's rendering of how the design should look. So it was almost like doing a huge puzzle on your knees, and it's just absolutely fabulous. The owners of the mansion now are Alex and Ani, the jewelry company from Rhode Island. What the owners wanted to do was to recapture some of that beauty and present it for people to use and people to enjoy every day. The floor is well over 100 years old. I'm not sure, but my guess is that the floor has never been professionally restored. So we did testing. Even though we tested and the floor cooperated in one area, when we began the work of restoration, it didn't behave the same as it did in the test area. Because it was a mosaic floor and it was hand installed, the floor had a tendency to have high spots and low spots. We say that the floor rolls a little bit, and the way that stone restoration is achieved is we have diamond pads that lay flat on the bottom of the machine, and when the machine runs over the floor, it runs perfectly flat and it addresses scratches or other damage on the floor, and those diamonds actually cut away that damage, which is fine if the floor is completely flat. When the floor is not completely flat, and it does, as I said, is it rolls, you have high spots and low spots. The high spots get polished, the low spots do not. So when you look out across a 4,000 square foot ballroom floor, you find that some of it is shiny and some of it is not. So we had to really be creative and find another way to make the floor look perfect. So we ended up using a coating for the floor, and what the coating did was it sat on top of all of the surfaces that we touched, as well as the surfaces that we didn't touch. And it brought a uniformity to the floor, so that when you look out over the entire floor, it looked like glass. One of the great things about this coating that we used is that it dries and cures to such a degree of hardness that it won't need to be burnished or buffed. It simply needs to be kept clean, free of debris, and it'll look beautiful for a good long time. I think probably the most important part that we bring to this business is an appreciation for the stone and the history of the stone and a history of the buildings where it resides. We're passionate about stone restoration. I love working on new and different stone. My job is different every single day. Probably the best part about us as a company is the fact that we love your floor. We love your stone, probably as much as you do, sometimes maybe more. And that's what keeps me enthused and excited about going to work every day. And keep the horses and the carriages off the floor. That's my only request.